When should you rely on yourself and when should you have faith in God? Can we define the sweet spot between personal responsibility and faith in the divine plan? The answer is yes, and in this video I'm going to be giving hopefully a practical yet philosophical answer to the following reflections from Sophia, who's reflecting on this balancing point between mental health and religious conviction, with that particular focus on finding the exact balance and if it's even possible. I do have a framework that I want to present to you, and I hope this is really going to support you in your month ahead. It's going to be finding this point between willpower and faith, but both of them exist across a spectrum. I'm going to be showing you the worst case scenario, a healthy middle ground scenario, and the absolute best case scenario to get the most out of your personal agency, and also a humble recognition that you aren't in control of every aspect of your life. Firstly, let's frame out the philosophy based on this double idea of a double spectrum, which is the spectrum of willpower and the spectrum of faith. You've got low faith and low willpower at one end, and you've got high faith and high willpower at the other end, and the configuration is really important to pay attention to. For example, let's imagine someone who's got really high personal faith. They have such an incredible belief in God. They've maybe had a few religious experiences here and there, or they're embedded in a religious community which nourishes them with a sense of safety and support, but they don't have personal willpower. This is the kind of person who's high on the faith spectrum but low on the personal willpower spectrum, and they might be the kind of person who has great emotional feelings about where they might go with their career, their relationships, or a personal healing journey, but they don't necessarily have the action or the self-structuring, self-managing accountability to actually make that happen. They might be fortunate enough to receive a miracle here or there, or at least receive the everyday miracle of people around them in their community, giving them good feelings and emotional support, but they're also likely to be stuck in a pattern of never really getting towards their goals. Either their career stays stagnant, their relationship's still deteriorating, or they're otherwise regressing in their actual objectifiable health. They haven't got the real world ability to make a change, even if they're divinely inspired. And this, of course, is the absolute inverse scenario from someone who's high on the personal willpower but low on the faith. This is someone who's hustling and grinding. Maybe they're openly atheistic, maybe they're otherwise agnostic, but not really relying upon faith in a greater power. They're the kind of person who gets ahead through their own blood, sweat, and tears. And I know people like this because I go there sometimes myself, where you're focused on your time management, you're focused on your checklist, you're focused on your productivity, and if there's any issues in your relationship, you almost try and strong arm your way through those conversations, even if it's an empathic and calibrated strong arming, and you're making the time and having the plan. You're like, okay, I'm going to have this difficult conversation, it's going to lead to this difficult. You haven't got that subtle energy flowing through you. You've got high personal willpower but low faith. Both of these scenarios painting out the worst case situation. Well, the worst case situation is no faith and no willpower. If you're in this desperate situation, this is very much the zone of apathy, depression, and unfortunately the slippery slope towards not wanting to be here anymore. If you're in that absolute worst case scenario, please focus on building out to at least one of these spectrums. It's unhealthy in the bigger picture to have only faith with no willpower, or only willpower with no faith, but it's much better to be in one of those situations than have neither. So if you are in that apathetic zone of no energy from the inside and no energy coming in from the outside, something to work on there. But if you're in that middling zone of one side is built out more than the other, you need to understand that it's fundamentally unsustainable. The way to balance the personal religious conviction with the personal conviction in your own ability to make things happen is to try and shift both of them towards a healthy, good enough, 80% confident kind of space, which is something that I don't say very often on this channel. Usually, if you see me speak about videos of spectrums and polarities, I say neither all the way towards this side or neither all the way towards that side. You need to find the middle point and the balancing point. We think of balance being only a middle zone issue, whereas actually the right balance between faith and willpower is about both of them being fundamentally positive, but not getting too grandiose. We're going to come to the grandiose issue right at the end of the video, making sure you don't get too inflated with your personal conviction or your religious conviction, because that does lead you into very unstable territory, a lot of spiritual ego. But for the sake of what you can actually do to find a balance between faith and willpower, it's realizing it's over here and not over there. I want you to feel like you're an 8 out of 10 with your conviction that God is on your side and your personal loving relationship with God, whatever that might mean for you, different religions and belief systems around the world, whatever that means for you. 8 out of 10 conviction that things are working out for you and you've got a greater connection to the wider world and the wider spiritual world. You have some kind of belief in the soul, some kind of belief in the goodness of God and how things are working out. And you also have the 8 out of 10 strong conviction in your own ability to get things done. You have a double-sided approach towards positive outcomes, and this is where it gets really interesting in the day-to-day life. If on a certain day, your baseline 8 out of 10, so we're establishing your 8 out of 10 personal willpower, personal faith, if you're in that zone as a daily emotional baseline, if either side takes the hit because something bad happened in your life, maybe something awful happened to a family member, there's a sudden sickness, or there's a concerning event on a political scale, or something happened in your neighborhood, or a natural disaster, or a sudden emergency, you might lose a bit of faith in God, but you still keep your personal willpower. Or inversely, you may have a situation where you really don't get out of bed that day, you fail to meet your productivity goals for the week, or maybe you take a bit of a hit in your finances or your personal relationship based on one of your own flaws in your own character. Not to say that you should be shameful, but we all go through these stages. If that falls down, you maintain your faith in God, and this is where the swinging pendulum balances itself out over time, because you're not going to maintain an 8 out of 10 relationship to yourself and to God every single day flawlessly. They'll take hits and they'll be bumped up and lowered down depending on what's happening in your life. If you want to find the perfect harmony between faith and willpower, you need to understand that it's always shifting. You want to be generally oriented towards positivity, generally oriented towards belief and hope in both yourself and in God, but also understand that through the trials and tribulations of life, you are going to take a few blows. You are going to be truly humbled and set back in very devastating ways, and the best thing you can possibly do for yourself is to have both yourself to rely on and God to rely on. Of course, you want to have community, family, friends, and the middle ground, but painting out the extremes, you can rely on this. But make sure, as a final point before you leave this video, just watch out for inflation. You don't want to be in an artificially hyper-dogmatic position with either your faith or your personal conviction. If you have someone who's 11 out of 10 with their faith, very often they've got a level of imaginal fantasy wrapped around their faith. There's the very loud, dogmatic, hyper-missionary zeal of anyone from any particular faith, where you can tell it's a little bit ungrounded and they're trying to keep themselves safe with a certain imaginary narrative of having God's special favor, or otherwise dissociating from their personal agency to be plugged into the wider picture. Not everyone of religious belief, I'm specifically talking about those who go way too far, in the same way that someone who goes way too far with their own personal willpower thinks that they are the lone wolf that will conquer the world, and they're hustling and grinding their way off the cliff. Don't do either of those situations. Keep yourself in that healthy 8 out of 10 range. Again, not the middle balancing point of 5 out of 10 neutral zone, because that's almost a kind of moving through life. You get just enough done. You have just enough faith in God. You could live there if you want to. If you have the choice, I'd rather you have more of a positive self-fulfillment and fulfillment from the energy of the wider spiritual world. Just watch out for the wider inflation, the deep inflation, the high inflation, the grandiosity trap. That will set you up. And again, if you're in the difficult stage of maybe having a particularly low relationship with God or a low relationship with yourself, you can improve this over time. Practically speaking, if you want to improve your personal willpower, you can start stacking up the habits and behaviors which prove to yourself that you are indeed a person who's capable of action and organizing your life. You quit the toxic vices and you start doing more of the healthy habits. You stack this over the course of the year. it does gradually improve. Self-esteem and self-reputation is built through having a list of high self-esteem actions which you return to on a weekly basis. And if you're trying to build your relationship with God, spend time in prayer, spend time in meditation, spend time reading certain religious texts or inspiring spiritual scriptures of one form or another, spend time in spiritual communities, spend time in nature, reflecting on the beauty of this incredible experience. I hope this video has helped. Leave a comment in the comment section if you want me to expand in faith and willpower in any particular direction. Otherwise, I will see you on the next video, and I look forward to it.